So for this due now, you are filling in the quadrilateral family tree. This is going to be a good study guide for you, so you can pause this, start copying them down. I'm going to go over them as we do this. So to start off, we are learning about all the different types of quadrilaterals. Quadrilaterals are shapes with or polygons with four sides and four angles whose sum is 360. Remember, it is any four-sided shape. Okay, it could be anything. So any four-sided shape will be a quadrilateral. Parallelograms is the branch of quadrilaterals that we are learning from. Now, if I was to draw out a parallelogram, it would look like this, and then we would have to remember that we have both pairs of opposite sides parallel and congruent. We would have both pairs of opposite angles congruent. We would have all consecutive angles are supplementary. This angle, that angle, and that angle, and those two angles add to 180. We know that the diagonals bisect each other. So these two angles are going to bisect each other, and then they form congruent triangles. The other thing that we could remember in here is that these zigzag angles, you have those alternate interior angles, they're kind of going to switch off and on here as well. Okay. So all of these properties carry through with every single shape that we are going to learn about now. They don't need these to be a quadrilateral, but they would definitely need these in order to be a rectangle and a rhombus. So to remind us of the difference between a rectangle and a rhombus, is that in a rectangle, not only does all of the above apply, but we also know that these diagonals are going to be congruent to each other. So these are going to be equal, which then means that each one of these pieces are going to be exactly the same. But the most important thing is that you have 90-degree angles in a rectangle. Okay? So all four angles are congruent in rectangles, and all four sides are congruent with a rhombus. Now, that means that rectangles are equiangular, which is a word we used in one of the earlier units, while a rhombus is going to be equilateral. Okay? This means that all four sides are congruent. This means that all of their angles are congruent. So all four sides are congruent. You know that the diagonals are also going to be perpendicular to each other. So if I was going to draw two diagonals in there, all of these angles on the inside are going to be 90 degrees. That is a super big thing that keeps popping up with questions about rhombus. You should also know that the diagonals bisect each other. So not only are opposite angles going to be equal, I'll do triangles here, but you now know that these two are going to be equal and these two are going to be equal. Okay, they're going to be split in half. So now, where do squares fit in? Okay, well, a square is a four-sided shape, so it is a quadrilateral. That's accurate. It is also a parallelogram, so that's also accurate. Is a square a rectangle? Is it a parallelogram with four congruent angles at 90 degrees? Yep. Are their diagonals congruent? Yep. What about a rhombus? Is it a quadrilateral or parallelogram where all four sides are congruent? That's true as well. In fact, a square is all of the above. It is like literally the best shape in the entire world because everything is pretty much given to you. So a square is a parallelogram with four congruent sides and four right angles. This means that it is called a regular polygon. That's when you have four congruent sides and four congruent angles. So a square says I have all the properties of a quadrilateral, parallelogram, a rectangle, and a rhombus. Has it all. So the properties of a square are given to you on your worksheet, and it's also been listed above. Now, what happens when you're dealing with a square is I'm going to draw it out. Okay? If I have a square, I know it's a quadrilateral, I know it's a parallelogram, I know that it's a rectangle, so it has 90 degrees in there, and it also has congruent diagonals that bisect each other. Okay? So these are all going to be congruent to each other. I know that all four sides are congruent to each other because it is a rhombus. It also means that the diagonals are bisecting each other. So what is 90 divided by 2? Well, it's 45. So this angle is 45, and so is this one. But so is this one, and 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 so is this one. All of the smaller angles are being halved at 45 degrees. What do you know about the angles on the inside? They're also going to be 90 degrees each. How do I know it's going to be 90? Well, because they're all bisecting each other and as well as perpendicular. So that's going to be a 90-degree angle in all of them, which means that this triangle, this one, and this one are all going to be congruent. Congruent right triangles all the way around. So these are also your 45, 45, 90 triangles that we did in the other unit. So we know everything about a square, now it's just applying it. If you know that the perimeter of the square is 80, then what is the area? Well, what do you need in order to find the area? You need your sides. How does the perimeter help you get the side? Well, if there's 4 sides, 80 divided by 4 is 20, which means each side had to have been 20 degrees. So then how do you find the area? Well, the area is the side squared, or side times side. So the area is going to be 20 times 20, which is 400. Now, you could have done this without actually even going through all the different properties that we just went through because you already know answers about squares. So, question number 2 says that ABCD is a square. We're going to draw a square. We're going to label A, B, C, D. We're going to make sure that says something, right? We're going to make sure that we know that all 4 sides are going to be congruent and all angles are going to be 90 degrees. We're going to label our information. AB is 8x minus 6 and BC is 5x plus 12. Well, how do we find the length of each square? What do we know about these two? Well, we know that they are congruent. So 8x minus 6 is going to be equal to 5x plus 12. Then we solve for x and plug it in. So the first thing, I bring the 5x over to the other side to keep that positive. So I end up with 3x minus 6 is equal to 12. I'm going to bring the 6 over to each side to be left with 3x is equal to 18 because those canceled out. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 3 in order to get x is equal to 6. Once I have x is equal to 6, I'm going to now plug them back in. So here, this is going to be 5 times 6 plus 12, which is 30 plus 12, which is 42. Double check, 8 times 6 is 48, 48 minus 6 is 42. Each side of the square is 42. Good. Now, as you continue on with the rest of the daily work, the only thing that I really want to point out is that some of the trickier questions that you get with squares, because you know all the angles are either going to be 90 or 45. Sometimes if they're like, oh, what is this angle right here? Well, you're going to set whatever it's equal to, I don't know if that's it, equal to 90. Okay, because all of these angles are 90. If they're giving you this one, what is this angle? Well, you know that angle is 45 degrees, so set whatever it is equal to 45 degrees. So right now, That's what you're going to be doing. You're also going to remember that this is a right triangle. And how do you find the missing lengths of a right triangle? You use the Pythagorean theorem of length squared plus length squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared. So you're going to turn in your daily work when you are finished, and you're going to complete it now.